Well, social media has been left divided after a video surfaced showing a teacher ferociously combing schoolboys' hair at the gates of a school suspected to be in Gauteng. The question is, to comb or not to comb? And why are we even still talking about hair in 2021? Well, for that discussion, I'm joined by Gugu Mkhize, who is a UKZN lecturer, and Konita Adams, who is a film director of Swirl, a love letter to hair on the Cape Flats. A very good afternoon to you, and thank you so much for joining us.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me.
Well, let me start with you, Gugu. Your reaction when you saw that video of that teacher ferociously and painfully combing those boys' hair before allowing them into school.
It's disappointing because schools should have rules and children should abide by those rules. So, but on the other hand, it's also humiliating for a student to be combed in front of other students.
And Konita, can I get your input as well, your reaction when you first saw that video? Do you agree with what Gugu's saying?
So firstly, I haven't seen the video because I'm not going to see the video. I don't want to participate in kind of that spreading of that video. But I think that it's inappropriate to police our hair. I think that the hair on my head has nothing to do with what's happening inside my head. And so I think that these kinds of attempts to restrain our hair and equivocate hair with learning kind of harkens back to really old and deeply problematic kind of politics. I think that particularly in South Africa, where hair and the quality of your hair was used to label people, to separate people, to determine your status in the community based on your hair, would decide whether you needed a pass to be able to walk with any kind of freedom in your city. I think in 2021, it is vulgar, it's inappropriate, and it's deeply problematic.
Now, Gugu, you were mentioning something about schools having perhaps code of conducts and rules and regulations. And from what I could gather, those boys had their hair cut and layered. It wasn't too long, but the only challenge there was that it was not combed. So in that respect, how do you determine whose hair should be combed and whose shouldn't?
It's difficult because the whole issue of hair, it's political, it's religious, it's cultural. But when we look back at schools, we know that schools are part of our heritage, colonial heritage, because when the missionary came with the rules. The school comes from that background. So the school should have a set of rules that are agreed upon by both parties, the school teachers, the parents. So I think it's better for this debate to go on between the schools and the parents. I know, especially in our African schools, there are no rules about hair. Myself, I'm an old school. I believe that for a learner, the hair must be neat. That's my belief. Another thing that the hair, there's a lot of spirits that is associated with hair. The Zulu speakers will know about the cringing of hair, because the spirits, why we cut during, when we mourn, why we cut our hair. So there is a lot. And also, there are people that you are not supposed to touch their hair. So, because of spiritual things. So the whole issue of hair, that's why I say it must be the parents and the teachers that set out rules and govern the school based on those rules.
Now, Konita, just coming back to you, one of your films just recently became available online, and it's called A Love Letter to the Hair on the Cape Flats. Coincidentally, at this time when we're talking about hair again, seemingly, just talk to us about that film and some of the themes that you were trying to address in it.
Thank you. So my movie is called Swirl, and it follows the journey of a young student hairstylist who starts out with straight hair. And then when she's faced with a series of challenges, and in fact her world falls apart and she starts losing her hair, When her hair grows back, she takes the kind of decision to embrace her natural hair, and she decides that she will no longer chemically straighten her hair. So that's the journey of the main character. However, through her, we meet her family, we meet the customers in her salon, we meet the principal of the school, and each of these characters have a different relationship with their hair. So Swirl, I say it's a letter to hair on the Cape Flats because it's about acknowledging and exploring different relationships with hair, whether women or men choose to straighten their hair chemically or with warm kind of products, whether they choose to go natural. It's such a personal decision that you make with your hair. And as you rightly pointed out, there are cultural practices that go with hair. There are religious and certainly spiritual practices that go with hair. So I try as much as possible to touch on all of these elements in the movie without kind of making any judgments. And also talking about what it means to have hair that looks a certain way, you know, the kind of privileges that come with maybe having hair that's slightly straighter versus kind of hair that looks like this. You know, how people treat you depends on what your hair is looking like. So in the movie, we meet all these characters, all of whom have a different relationship with their hair. And so we explore these ideas in the movie.
And what would you say about general attitudes towards hair? I mean, if you think about the school's code of conduct and speaking to a lecturer about, you know, even universities' code of conduct, and also for professionals where sometimes you are viewed to be unprofessional if you wear your natural hair to work, you know, and also even in certain industries like if you are a ballerina, for example. Now, female ballerinas always have to have their hair tied up in a bun, which almost sort of the subtext of that says that you cannot have short hair if you want to be a ballerina.
Look, I think it's changing. I think it's frustrating in that these changes happen in like tiny, seemingly invisible ways. But I think things are changing. I think that there are enough women in power who are out there with hair in different kind of shapes, in different strains, looking in different ways. And more and more and more, it's about the quality of the work you can deliver and less about what your hair is doing. So even though there are still these conservative practices, particularly, as you say, in the corporate environment, in the school environment, in the university environment. I mean, I've got to say, I was in university in the 90s, and it was me and one other young man on campus, and we walked around with these big afros, and I said, I walked around looking like a karaoke mic. Like, it was just this big fuzz of hair. And in those days, people used to feel like it was okay to shout things at me or to, like, grab my hair or to make comments. But the fact is, I let my career speak for itself. I let my successes speak for itself. I let the fact that I am who I am and I'm out there with my hair like this, and people can accept that or they cannot accept that, but I'm not going to be deterred because, quite frankly, what my hair is doing is, in fact, the most boring thing about me. There are other things about me that are more exciting. And even just our esteemed guest who has very little to almost no hair. I'm sure that there are all kinds of attitudes that you have had to face because of your decision to wear your hair like that. But just listening to you today, I know you don't let that stop you. You know what I mean? So I think that it's important that there are strong women out there who model confidence and who model a positive relationship with their hair for young girls and also young boys. And if your confidence is about having a hot iron through your hair or a blow dryer through your hair or a big afro, then that's what it is that you need to do so that you can radiate confidence.
And Gugu, just lastly from you, have you had any experiences where you might have been discriminated against because of how you choose to wear your hair?
Not exactly. The environment that I'm in is welcoming.
So would you also encourage other young women and men out there to be confident and take pride in their hair?
Yes, but as an adult, I will always say to young ones, keep your hair tidy. No matter what hairstyle we are having, but keep it tidy. It must be clean.
Well, thank you so much, ladies, for joining us this afternoon. That was Gugu Mkhize, who is a lecturer at the University of KwaZulu-Natal, and Juanita Adams, a film director of Swirl, recently released online a love letter to the hair on the Cape Flats.